This is resumption of the City Council successor agency to the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and Housing Authority meeting for February 25th, 2021. We have returned from closed session. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan.
Present.
Councilmember Nastandi.
Here.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
Presente.
Mayor Kelly.
Here.
All
Okay.
present. Thank you.
Great. And Councilmember Karina Quintanilla will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'll do so sitting from here, but I will lead whenever you're ready.
Ready.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And all may be seated for the inspiration invocation. I recently heard a story about the great Hasidic master, Rabbi Zusha, who seemed despondent on his deathbed. His students asked him, "How could you be despondent? You've committed so many good deeds. You rival Moses." To which the rabbi replied, "In the coming world, they will not ask me, 'Were you Moses?' They will ask you, 'Did you do a good job of being Zusha?'" With this story in mind, I offer this invocation as we exercise the privilege of representing our residents and businesses. May we be the best possible version of ourselves, and may we take actions which support all those who are impacted in being the best possible version of themselves. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, do you have anything to report from closed session?
No, Madam Mayor, there were no reportable actions taken. There was direction given. Thank you.
And I believe that Michael Rosencrantz will be with us to make a presentation today about the Palms to Pines Parasports program. Michael, are you with us? Gloria, do you see that Michael is present?
I allowed a mic in. I tried to email.
Hello. Hi, can you see me?
We can hear you.
Let's see here. Sorry. Let me see if I can get my camera on. Nope. I don't see. Well, I'm on my phone, so I don't know. Anyway, can I talk to you? Is that okay?
Yes, no, I know you sent a PowerPoint, and
Yeah.
is staff prepared to put that up as you speak? All right.
Yeah, if you could put it up. Oh, there it is. Very cool. Okay, I'm just going to talk. First of all, thank you all so much for letting me come on and tell you about Palms to Pines Parasports. I'm actually right in the middle of a tennis lesson. I work for Desert Recreation District as well, which I really feel privileged to do. So if you can go to the next slide. Can we get the next slide there? Okay, there it is. So, there's a little information about us. We started in Actually, we incorporated in California in June of last year. A number of people came together. There's 15 of us, 14, 15 of us on the board, people with a good deal of experience in adaptive sports. And, obviously it includes athletes, that is people with physical disability. We focus on people with physical disability. However, we work with people of all different abilities. You can go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So here's just a little bit about our purpose, mission statement, and also our vision. It's really about creating a lot more inclusion, in the world and our little space that we're working in. And, we just see sports as an avenue, as kind of an entry point to just helping people with, various abilities to lead very full lives. Go to the next slide, please. Sorry, hold on. I'll be with you guys in 1 second, okay? Get some water, please. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, here's our board. We're really fortunate we have a CPA who's our treasurer. Our vice president works for the city of Riverside Parks and Rec, because we are a county-wide organization, although we're focusing on Coachella Valley at the moment. Okay, you can go to the next slide. And a few other people. We have an attorney on our board. You might recognize some of the names here, not sure. Jessica and Jerry are people with disability. Okay, next slide. Great. And then, here's some other people again. Ali is a person with disability. Eddie is a person with disability. Will Rogers. Will Rogers is someone who is almost totally blind and had an amputation below the knee, but he participates in every sport, and you don't want to go against him in archery, that's for sure, because he just gets bullseyes consistently. Wow. Okay, next. Great. So these are some of our partnerships. We're really privileged to work with Desert Recreation District. I don't know if you know Kendra Smith. She's fantastic. She's the adaptive person. But these are all the other people, all the other groups that we're working with. We do a bi-weekly Zoom, because there's a lot happening in the Coachella Valley. There's also a calendar which DRD maintains of all the different kind of adaptive events that are happening, everything from art, to sports and such. Okay, next. Great. These are the programs we're doing. So Monday and Wednesday, basketball. Tuesdays is archery in India. We do a support group Wednesday nights. Tennis and pickleball are today as we speak. Bocce ball, it's a Paralympic sport. It's not bocce ball. We do that. Fridays, we do an online meditation. And Saturdays, we're alternating between cycling and hiking. And this Saturday, we're cycling, actually. We're going to meet at Palm Desert Park. Everything we do with masks, of course, and, wash our hands constantly. Okay, next. Okay, so just gives you an idea, of some of the things that we're doing. Again, we're working with people of all different abilities, so it's really great, very inclusive. Next. And yeah, obviously, like many nonprofits, we want to work with municipalities in the Valley, of course, throughout Riverside County. And if you know of someone, that could use some adaptive sports to come out and play, please let us know. There's my email and also but our website as well. Okay, so that's that. Do you have any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question. Thanks, Mike. That's wonderful to know what's going on in our backyard in terms of equity and accessibility, especially right now as we're looking to get back out to outdoor activities. How many athletes and participants are you currently helping right now? And what is your bandwidth to be able to have us encourage you to get more?
So right now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 athletes are out with us today in tennis and pickleball. Basketball, we've had between, I'd say 8 and 10 or so. Archery, we've had less adults than children in archery. We have 5 kids. We ask that siblings play too, because we want to be super inclusive, of course. We want family members to participate. Our hikes, we did a hike recently, last week in Rancho Mirage, and we had I think we had upwards of 20 people. And of course, that includes family members as well. We had a new person who had a heart attack a year and a half or so ago. We had, people with autism and intellectual. So our bandwidth is unlimited. The sky's the limit. We know there are, according to HARC data, there's thousands of people who are just not getting out and playing, and we're unlimited. We just want to create opportunities. That's what we're about.
Absolutely. Love that attitude. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for squeezing us. Yes.
You are welcome, and thank you. And we really hope to be working with, the city of Palm Desert. So thanks. I really appreciate it. Okay, bye. I'm going to get back to tennis. Bye bye.
Wait. Savvy Jonathan had.
One more question. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have a minute, or you have to get back to them?
No, they're sitting and talking. They're okay. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make it quick. So first of all, kudos to you. A lot of people talk about inclusion. You're actually out there doing it. That's amazing and much appreciated. Question to you. My memory is fading. We had a group, maybe we still do, that does similar services. Jan, you remember we've been out there at the park. They have an annual event, Desert Activity Center or something. Are you an offshoot from them, or are you working with them?
Not at all. No. So just to let you know, so my wife and I moved here about a year and a half ago to work with Desert Ability Center. And then when COVID hit, that was kind of the end of that. And those of us who are on the board now, who are on this board, hi Zoe, one of our tennis players is here. Let's see. I just want to be positive. There's room for everyone. Obviously, I feel like Palms of Pines is just, we're doing what we said we would do. And so we're doing tons of activities. We're being super inclusive. And that's all I want to say about that.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Thank you all.
This is the opportunity in the meeting for members of the public to offer comments on non-agenda items for a maximum of 3 minutes. Speakers have 3 options, which we are trying out on a new basis at this meeting. Because the Brown Act does not allow the City Council, successor agency, or housing authority boards to take action on items not on the agenda, we may briefly respond or instead refer the matter to staff with a request for action. And that essentially means that we cannot have a conversation with you as much as we would like to. But we are always available through the City Council office to connect with you by Zoom or phone or whatever works for all parties concerned. So at this point, the clerk's office will explain how to call attention to yourself if you wish to be heard on a non-agenda item. Gloria?
First of all, thank you for participating in our remote virtual city council meeting. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth meeting with public participation. The agenda provided options and instructions for providing public comment at these meetings. Before we begin, please silence your other communication devices, such as your cell or desk phone. This will ensure that we are not hearing any feedback or causing interruption during the meeting. The mayor will invite public comment where appropriate on the agenda. Zoom instructions. For those on Zoom, if you would like to make a public comment, on the Zoom screen, please click on the raised hand button, which is found by hitting the Participants tab. If you are using Zoom on your smartphone, tap your screen, look for the More option, and then click on the Raise Hand button on the screen. For those calling in using the phone line only, you can dial *9 on your keypad to signal that you would like to comment. When called upon by the city clerk, you will be allowed to speak. Please keep your comments to 3 minutes. Please be patient as we navigate through these options, and if we need to, we will continue to tweak the process in efforts to make this experience go smoothly. Thank you. Mayor, you're muted.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I see one hand raised, so I presume we should call upon Linda Salas to begin. Gloria, would you like to instruct?
Yes, I am attempting to allow her to promote.
There she is.
She dropped. Allow to talk.
It looks like Ray got promoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, good. Good. The reason I'm here is I'd like to speak to the issue of can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to speak to the issue of moving toward a 5-district system of elections in the city of Palm Desert. I live in Palm Desert. I'm a resident, and I've been involved since the whole issue got started about 3 years ago. I understand there are pros and cons on this issue. The city's already spent, from what I believe, around $350,000 with attorney fees still undecided. In order to save the city some money, I believe that if we had an ordinance to place to put a 5-district system on the election cycle, the 2022 election cycle, that could save money. And because I've been told, but I don't know how true it is, that a ranked choice system on the ballot could cost another $300,000. So that's pretty expensive. I'd like to suggest, if I could, a study and review of this on the agenda for the next council meeting. Also, I need to inquire as to how to get an item on the agenda meeting if this isn't the way to do it. I need to know the process. So maybe one of the council, the city clerk, could respond to this inquiry. I don't know how many of the city council could sign on. So if I could get some communication going with the city clerk or whoever answers these issues, I'd appreciate it. I believe Gloria has my email address, and I hope I haven't exceeded my 3 minutes. Thank you.
You have not, and I will coordinate with the clerk to make sure that you receive a clear explanation of our policies for inclusion of items on the agenda.
Okay, thank you.
So thank you. Gloria, who are you prepared to elevate next?
Ray. Ray, you have 3 minutes?
Okay, I just want to make sure thank you. Is this the appropriate time to speak on drive-throughs?
Ray, that's an agenda item. So it would probably be best to wait till we get to that. If
That's
you're
why I asked. I apologize, Mayor. Thank you.
no problem.
Thank you.
Mayor, you're muted. Any speaker that we don't have a name, please state your first and last name for the record.
Councilmember Quintanilla just made a very good suggestion. If you're having trouble with the raised hand function, you may also click chat and express your interest in speaking to a non-agenda item, and we'll watch for that. But I don't see any other hands raised at this time.
I was reached by Mr. John Pick, who did wish to speak on a non-agenda, and I see him in the group of attendees.
All right,
I shall allow him in.
would you elevate Mr. Pick?
John Pick, you have 3 minutes, Mr. John Pick.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Kelly, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, and the remainder of the council, thank you for letting me speak here today. I've spoken in the past before the council regarding the issue of desert community energy. During the past few weeks since the weather tragedy in Texas, I've heard a lot of locals, both directly to me and in passing, make the comment, boy, I sure am glad I live in the desert, and we don't have to deal with that sort of thing here, and we'll never have to. And on occasion when it's been directed to me, I've said, yeah, but what happens here in July or August if or when our power grid goes down? Is it preferable to die from heat stroke or prostration as it is from the cold? I know that desert community energy is by no means a final solution to our energy problems. I feel what they've done in Gonzales, California, going totally off the grid with a microsystem is, but we have to start someplace, and we have to start soon. In the past, I know the issue has been the issue of market volatility and cost. I'd like to end my time here with a question. If the son or daughter of one of those people in Texas who died in the cold were asked, say, 6 months ago, this is going to happen, but your mom and dad or dad could live, but it's going to cost you $10 more a month on your power bill. What do you think their response would have been? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Gloria, does that conclude the comments on non-agenda items?
Yes.
Very good. That brings us to the consent calendar. Do any council members wish to remove something from consent? Councilmember Jonathan.
Yes, item 7, please.
Right. Any other removals?
No, I have an issue with the same one.
Very good. Would someone like to move the remainder? Don't all speak at once.
Move the balance.
Approved. I'll second it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
motion carries 0
What?
with the exception of,
Here's what I think.
I'm sorry, with the exception of item 7.
And I vote for it.
I'm so sorry. I apologize. Thank you.
Very good. I see Mr. Gary is with us. Would you like to offer a brief report before we learn of our colleagues' questions?
Absolutely, Honorable Mayor and council members. Thank you for having me. This is Chris Gary with the City Manager's Office. The item before you tonight is a continuation of an item that we had on November 19th, where staff brought forward various recommendations for council's consideration related to commissions and committees. And so the three recommendations before you this evening were conceptually approved last meeting, with the exception of, I believe it was Mayor Kelly had made the recommendation to explore the elimination of these committees and talk with the appropriate committee members. And so staff has talked with all of the committee members on those three commissions, including the Library Promotion Committee, our Economic Development Committee coordinated with the Hotel and Signature Event Committee for feedback. And staff spoke with the Youth Committee as well in person. With obtaining feedback, there was no substantial feedback, with the exception of, for the Library Promotion Committee, there was the recommendation to have a library representative as an ex officio position on the Parks and Recreation Commission moving forward. And I am available for any questions, and there's community development staff available as well.
Great. Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Gary, good to see you. Good evening. So you mentioned that the committees that have been consulted. I have two questions to you with regards to the Library Promotion Committee. Number one, libraries are not something that traditionally are associated with Parks and Rec. I kind of understand the indirect reading is recreational. I don't know, all the libraries do so much more, but first question is, what's the logic behind that? And the second question, in terms of reaching out to the committees, did you or any staff member, and full disclosure, I'm the liaison to the Parks and Rec Commission, and I don't recall this being run by them. So did I miss something, or did you pull that committee for their input?
Councilmember Jonathan, we did not have an opportunity to talk to the Recreation and Park Commission in advance to this recommendation. I could say, with just looking at other practices, for example, the City of Corona has a Library and Recreation Committee. There are other committees out there that incorporate library functions into Parks and Recreation as well. Libraries themselves are a community facility. And just as well, you see a lot of libraries going into programming as well. And I could tell you from my past experience, working with our local library on incorporating STEM activities and 3D printing and various activities for youth employment in libraries. So libraries are starting to do a little bit more different things than just books nowadays to try to get more users into the library. I've had quite a few conversations with our librarian, and she thinks this would be a Julia Schumacher, and she believes this would be a good avenue as well for promotion. If we recall also, one of the subcommittee's goals was to have our committees and commissions be ambassadors and voices for our community of things that are going on. And so we found that adding to the Parks and Recreation Commission additional items, it adds more value to that commission and adds another item for them to be an ambassador for us. We are on the next Parks and Recreation agenda to discuss this item as well.
Very good. Thank you.
And Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you. I wanted to mention additionally, our library is a county library. This is not the City of Palm Desert Library, but most of what the Library Promotion Committee did were the events. We had events about cooking, we had chefs, we had things like that. So they were events. It really wasn't a what you would think of as a pure library related, old school library related events.
Councilmember Quintanilla, you also wanted to pull this item. Did you have a question?
Yes, I do, Mayor. Thank you. Mr. Gary, you mentioned that you asked or you spoke with the committees in person when possible. And how many people on the youth committee were consulted on this?
All of the individuals who were on the youth committee, we actually had a youth committee meeting, and Mayor Pro Tem Harnick participated on that meeting as well. So I believe it was 5 or 6. It's been a while since that meeting. It was last year. But the youth committee members understood the recommendation, and actually they have heard about the Youth in Government program through the YMCA program, and we're excited for an opportunity, and they've heard good things about it. So we look forward to participating in that program and looking how we could add value to it as well. And
Sure, I heard that part of the presentation back in the fall, and I was just wondering if there had been anything new with regard to how to progress, and instead of just having all of those funds diverted and the funds and the effort over to youth and government. And not that it's not a spectacular program, but I just have the concern that we as a city are missing out on valuable opportunities to have our youth directly engaged. And I know that the committee's concerns has been that there have not been enough youth involved in the past, and that there has been the inability to retain them. But perhaps I think that we need to explore partnerships and have the elected students of Palm Desert High School or Palm Desert Charter Middle be able to represent and have a steady, committed relationship. Because if their voices are not present and their voices are not represented, we could be missing some key components to be sure that future Cal State Palm Desert has the key youth integrated into our future vision. And I know that this has been decided months ago, but I would like to know then, if this has already been done and we're talking old news, what would it take to reestablish a new youth commission with actual youth involved?
Chris, could I offer a comment as a member of the subcommittee? There's a key sentence in this report, which says, city staff is exploring ways to connect youth to additional volunteer opportunities in the community. One of the issues that we've discussed in the subcommittee is that the youth committee was quite diverse in its scope, and it became involved in city events, playing an important supportive role. So there's a great opportunity to do exactly what you've described, which is to connect to other student representatives at Palm Desert High School and to engage with them. Because frankly, what we're hearing from the students is that they just don't have enough bandwidth to be a part of one more organization. So we want to utilize existing roles, just as you say, SBA officers. There's a very active Interact Club at the high school engaged in service. We could connect there and invite them to play the sort of role that our youth committee previously played at events. So at least as a subcommittee member, I see this action as the beginning of the sort of initiatives you describe.
Thank you, Mayor. That makes a lot more sense. It was just very concerning to seem like that may have just been shifted and out of sight, out of mind. Since youth and government has a season for activity, I just felt there was a whole lot of time throughout the year, independent of their programming, that we could be utilizing.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick is the other member of the subcommittee.
Yeah, and also I attend all the youth committee meetings. So besides everything that the mayor has explained, which is all valid and very important in this, the other issue we looked at is how can youth in government get more involved in the city. So we were creating the youth in government. One thing the youth in government do, they go to Sacramento. They don't come to our council meetings. So they're missing that piece. So we were looking at ways and working with the YMCA so that all of those youth could be more engaged at the city and working in the programs. So we were really, the students in youth and government, as well as the students in the youth committee, are all benefiting by a more robust program where they're involved in the community.
Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. I did have one other question, I guess for Mr. Gary. So we have talked about further overhauls to our committees and commissions. So is this process continuing? Is this just the first report? Because I know we've looked at revising some committees and commissions, revisiting what their goals and objectives are, maybe eliminating others, and possibly adding a homelessness committee. So is this an ongoing process?
Councilmember Jonathan, it is an ongoing process and additional agenda items will be rolling out on subsequent agendas.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
What?
Let's move to comments.
Thank you. I have a better understanding of the reasoning behind what's being proposed, and I would support it. I would just ask my colleagues if you think it might be, common courtesy to present the proposed addition of the library designate to their commission rather than just kind of thrusting it on them. I'm just asking for how you feel about that.
Personally, I think it makes great sense to condition the first recommendation on consultation with Parks and Rec.
Yeah, that would be good because we can move this forward and condition it as you said. If that makes sense to the rest of you, I'm more than happy with that.
Was that a motion, Sabby Jonathan?
Yes, we're waiting.
It was now.
And was that a second?
Why, yes, it was, Mayor.
Then I think you can take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilman Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes,
motion carries 5-0.
thank you. We have no consent items held over, and the first action item is number 11, resolution number SARTA 083, a resolution of the Board of Directors of the Successor Agency of the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency, approving the execution of a termination agreement to dissolve the Riverside County Palm Desert Financing Authority and take related actions. May we have the staff report?
Good afternoon, Honorable Chair, members of the board. Veronica Tapia, Senior Management Analyst for the Finance Department. The item you're considering tonight is a general housekeeping item related to the dissolution of the redevelopment agency, or the former Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency, I should say. The Riverside County Palm Desert Financing Authority was or RCPDFA, was a JPA, or Joint Powers Authority, created between the Palm Desert Redevelopment Agency and the County of Riverside for the purpose of debt issuance for improvements within the Coachella Valley that were property of the County of Riverside. The idea was that RCPDFA created a funding mechanism for them that also provided a credit enhancement with the Palm Desert name. The debt that was issued developed the Coachella Valley Animal Campus, the Mecca Clinic, the Blythe Admin Center, and the Palm Desert Sheriff Station. Each of those bonds has been refunded through the county's consolidated debt consolidation in 2017, so there are no longer any debt outstanding from this issuance. And with the dissolution of RDAs, the RCPDFA is now obsolete. And so we are asking that we authorize this termination agreement. The county staff took their part of this agreement to the County Board of Supervisors on January 26, and it was approved unanimously. If approved tonight, it'll go to the Oversight Board and further to the Department of Finance for their consideration as well. If you have any questions on this, I'm happy to answer.
I see no questions. Is there a motion?
Seems like good housekeeping, so moved.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes,
motion carries 5-0.
thank you. For cleaning house.
Thank you, Veronica.
I Item 12 is a request to ratify the interim city manager's authorization to enter into necessary agreements and authorize the expenditure of up to $400,000 for utility relocations related to the President's Plaza East and West parking lot improvements. Project number 758-14. May we have the staff report?
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of City Council, Randy Bowman, Department of Public Works. We have received two utility relocation invoices from two of the three private utilities that need to relocate facilities in conjunction with the President's Plaza project. In order to keep things moving along, because some of the work that they're doing involves equipment that requires long lead items, and in the days of COVID, a lot of items take longer to deliver from suppliers. We requested the interim city manager give approval to process these invoices with the understanding that we would ratify his action at the soonest possible city council meeting, which is today. So we have this before you. We do have a third bill that we are expecting from Southern California Edison. We have not yet received it. But we do expect it to be a sizable bill. So therefore, that explains recommendation number 2 that is in your staff report. Again, this is for the expedient delivery of this very important project. And in case you are wondering the status, we are expecting to open up bids next Tuesday afternoon, and then on fire send a staff report with a construction award to the City Council for consideration immediately thereafter. Thank you. Happy to answer questions.
Thank you. We love all the expedition you exuded in your choice of words. Looks like Councilmember Jonathan has a question.
I do have a question. Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Bowman, a question on the fiscal analysis. I'm sorry, I just wasn't clear. The request is to expend up to $400,000, which is part of an expected overall project cost of, let's call it 9.3 million. But in the next paragraph, you say, while we have the 9.3, 9.2 in bond proceeds, the current budget is only 7.7 million and doesn't allow for the extra 400,000. So I'm confused. Did we approve the 9.2 million and this is part of that? Or did we approve 7.7 million? This is in addition to that.
I would certainly appreciate Finance Director Janet Moore to pipe in to make sure I'm on the straight and narrow on my response. But as I understand it, Councilmember Jonathan, that this 400,000 will come from the current budgeted amount. And we are, I think in the last staff report that was presented on this project to City Council, staff included in its fiscal analysis this language, which advises the City Council that we may need to seek additional appropriation for the construction award. And of course, we don't know what that amount is going to be until after next Tuesday. Janet, please correct me if I misstated.
Well, I'd be happy to correct you. I'm sure everything you said was fine, except I didn't hear it because they were elevating me. However, I'll try to just quickly reiterate. Basically, we have the money. At the time that we established the budget, which was a couple of years ago, we did not anticipate spending the entire 9.2. So a lesser amount was put into the budget. However, we knew almost very quickly that if we were staying on track, that the budget would actually be exceeded. And we said, when we get the contract for construction, we will actually request that. So we're still hoping that the whole project falls under the 9.2. We'll ask you for an appropriation when we get that contract. But again, that money is set aside, the 9.2 is set aside, and it's available for use. It's just the budget was not approved at the 9.2.
I guess, okay, I'm just not quite understanding. I mean, this is going out to bid. Why are we spending money on construction now? Why is it not part of the bid or of the projected budget of 7.7? Why? This seems to be above and beyond and apart from what we're expecting to come from the bid. So why are we doing this now And why is it a part and in addition to the contract that we're about to get proposals on?
Janet, I'll tackle the trying to answer the question. Councilmember Jonathan, this is reimbursements to the private utility companies for relocating their facilities. It's not part of the construction contract. This is in addition to, and unlike, right of way, where a lot of times we by law can require private utility owners to relocate their facilities at no cost to the city. This is different because it is not right of way. And so unfortunately, we do have to pay those bills for the utility relocations.
Okay, final question, I promise. Are there any other unexpected or expected or in between costs outside of the contract that we're about to put out for proposal? Because Janet, you mentioned we're hoping that we have enough money, and that's always scary to hear. So are there any other outside costs beyond what we're going to get proposals for?
Fair question to ask, council member. I'll attempt to answer that. As I said, we are expecting a utility relocation invoice from Southern California Edison, much like the 2 invoices that are covered in this staff report. Also, we do expect to need to amend the design engineering contract for additional potholing that was required to verify the extent of the utility relocations necessary for the work. Also, we will be requesting, as a part of that contract amendment, to keep the designer on board for construction engineering. In other words, dealing with unknowns that might arise once the contractor starts working, such as they uncover something that no one had any idea was there, and we might need a quick a design fix to fix around that. That to my knowledge is what I'm aware of at this point.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Councilmember Quintanilla.
I'm still having a little bit of difficulty understanding the timeline of the money will come. We don't have it yet. The money will come. How far are we looking at the possibility of when those funds would arrive? And why can't we just wait to approve when we finally do have all the funds? What other projects would be held up, and how long would that domino further if we wait until the funds are secure?
Okay. I kind of use an analogy. I'll try to make it a little shorter because it is kind of difficult. It's one of those, we do have and have set aside the 9.2 that included all the work to date. So the construction manager, all of the things that we've done. It did not include the construction contract. So as Randy was indicating, the utilities relocation is in the 7.7. However, it almost kind of goes back to when you were 15 trying to sneak into the movie that was rated R. You had the money in your pocket, but you didn't have your mom and dad standing next to you saying it was okay if you can go in. So you have to get their approval to do so. That's kind of the same idea here. We have the money in our pocket. We do already have it, except we don't have the council's approval up to 9.2. It was a decision couple of reports back, I would say, in the request for action, that we wait until we have the contract for the construction before we actually do the appropriation. So that was just a decision that was made, like I said, a couple of contracts ago. But we do have the money in our pocket. We just don't have the authority from U5 to say it's okay to spend it on this. Although you have given us ample approvals on staff reports that have had this same information in them to say you understand that. Now, what I want to clarify is that I said we have 9.2. If the construction contract comes up and it's in excess of what's left on the contract, and that, I apologize, I don't have off the tip of my tongue how much that is. I think, Randy, were we expecting 7? What were we expecting the construction contract to come in? What was the engineer's estimate?
Approximately 7.5 million.
Okay, so 7.5 million. If it comes in much above that, then we're going to have to give the council options with respect to the balance and where that's coming from. And that may mean delaying projects that do not currently are not in the, immediately ready, shovel ready to go, or it may mean prioritizing a contract. But that's where we stand right at this minute.
Thank you. That's what I needed to clarify. What it pushed further down the line if we didn't take action. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to emphasize what we've heard tonight. And I know the council has given ample direction. And Janet, thank you for that glimpse into your youth that you just shared with us. But the council has given ample direction regarding getting this project done. And it's so important to get this done so that we don't negatively impact those businesses at a time when that's the last thing they need. We're working so hard to get this project done in a timely fashion so that they can get back up and running and be successful as possible. COVID's had such a negative impact, and we're trying to get this moving. And at this time, South Star, who is the project manager, is that the appropriate title, Randy?
Construction manager.
Construction manager. They are working so hard to get this moving, and they have all these moving pieces, and they're trying to get them all going in the right direction so that they can break ground on April 7th. So we can get this going and help our businesses get back on track. So it is a lot of moving pieces, but it's worth it for us to really work along with them to get this done.
And let me offer this option as well. Sorry, Mayor Kelly. Let me just add this one option. You, of course, could modify the recommendation tonight to include the balance up to 9.2 in an appropriation. And then the next time when the contract comes to you for construction, if it is over that total, we would be asking you just for the difference between the total project of 9.2 and whatever the overall cost of that project is.
Let me suggest that before that suggestion, everything had become clear. I think we had a clear understanding of what was before us for approval tonight and what we should expect to come back to us for approval in the future. So I at least would prefer to stick with the original recommendation. Do we have any further questions on that? Are we ready to take action?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, would you please take the vote?
We're having technical difficulties and Grace will be back shortly. Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
Yes.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nestandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly,
Yes.
motion carries 5-0.
And Janet, thank you so much for your clear explanations and for giving us choices. Choices are always good.
Thank you.
And thank you, Mr. Bowman, for continuing to move things along. And that brings us to item 13, request for direction regarding drive-through restaurants in the city of Palm Desert. We'll receive the staff report first, then we'll have questions from council. And if any members of the public are here to comment on this item, we'll take your comments after council questions and before council discussion. Mr. Sayah.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight, staff is seeking direction from the City Council regarding the city's longstanding limitation on drive-through restaurants. So I have a quick presentation. Currently, the city's ordinances only allow drive-through restaurants with a freeway commercial overlay zone. Those zones are shown on the PowerPoint here, highlighted in blue. There's some additional zones on Monterey Avenue where the red lines are as well, shown here, as well as Portola Avenue. So those are really the only areas that the city currently allows drive-through restaurants. And we have some criteria regarding their design, screening requirements, et cetera. We have received a formal application.
And Eric and Washington, right?
And Washington at Country Club.
Yeah, thank you.
We have received a formal application requesting a review of drive-through restaurants. Specifically, the application is to allow a drive-through restaurant at the Palms of Pines Shopping Center, shown here. Staff was able to take that application and review or make a presentation to the subcommittee, Economic Development Subcommittee, at which point we were provided some guidance, which is contained in the staff report. So today, again, staff is just looking for direction on how the city council feels about drive-through restaurants and potentially expanding them outside the freeway commercial overlay zone. Staff is here to answer any questions.
Councilmember Nastante.
In terms of studies and data on air pollution, I didn't see the details in the staff report on it.
Correct. Staff really hasn't done a deep dive on this topic because we still have that limitation on where drive-throughs are allowed. If a drive-through is proposed, in review of that development proposal, we would be looking at environmental impacts, including air quality.
And maybe this is for discussion. The studies I've read is that with today's cars, is that for discussion?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Any other questions of staff before we dive into that discussion? Yes, Councilmember Quintanilla.
My question for staff is, how often have you received petitions for drive-throughs to change the ordinance? And when did the ordinance prohibiting drive-throughs go into effect?
I'm not sure when the original ordinance went into effect. My assumption is that it's been part of the city since inception, since we do not currently see drive-throughs outside of that freeway commercial overlay zone. In terms of requests, the last one we got was in 2016, 2017, and it was for a new shopping center that's recently completed construction on Washington Street and Avenue of the States. I can tell you staff does regularly meet with commercial developers that request drive-throughs, at which point staff essentially shuts them down, saying the ordinance prohibits them in the location they're looking at.
Any other questions? If there are members of the public wishing.
I'm sorry, Mayor, I've had my hand up. I don't know if I'm on your screen. Okay, I think I was reading your lips and you said, go ahead. So,
yes.
Okay, Mr. Seha, good evening to you. So I think what we're considering is a modification to the ordinance and not the specific proposal that triggered that consideration. So in general, I don't know if you've looked at this, but is it possible, we hear talk about shielding a drive-through from the street, like from Highway 111. And I don't know if you've even looked at that issue, but do you think it's conceivably possible, to do that?
Yeah, to address the first part, we are not asking the city council to adopt or modify the ordinance tonight. We are seeking that direction, though, that if we're provide that direction to explore those options. But yes, to answer your second question, in terms of screening, there's a number of things that can be done in terms of architecture, landscape, that could further screen drive-throughs, the queuing lines for vehicles, et cetera.
Thank you.
Sorry, I missed you, Councilmember Jonathan. Are there other questions? Okay, if there are members of the public who are here to speak to this question, use the raised hand function and the clerk will elevate you so that you will have 3 minutes to speak. I see one hand, Ms. Sanchez. Would you like to call on that person?
Matthew Bush, you have 3 minutes. Matthew? Mr. Bush?
Mr. Saya, maybe you can stop sharing your screen for the moment.
Mr. Bush, you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Bush, do you hear us?
I'll disable the talking and allow in Ms. Ure.
Right. Let Mr. Bush continue trying. But elevate Ms. Ure.
Ms. Carrie Ure, you have 3 minutes.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Thank you for giving my time to speak. I'm not a developer, I'm a small business owner, and I've seen the need for fast food restaurants. I mean, they're all busy right now. People want added convenience during COVID. They're afraid to go into places, and any drive-through place is packed right now. Now, my problem is I want to get healthy, organic food to people, not just these big fast food chains that are basically killing America. I know the city is focused on COVID, so you would think that lifting this ordinance would make sense. I do notice that we allow bank drive-throughs, so isn't that essentially a drive-through? So can't we have an ordinance that says they have to resemble these same bank drive-throughs? And it would seem easy that these drive-throughs wouldn't have to be on main streets. I feel like that's an easy solution. What else did I want to say? Oh, and I also understand the environmental impact, but I do know that there's so many cars now that when they're idle, they turn off. I also know that California is very forward thinking and trying to get electric cars easier to people. So hopefully they continue that to make it more accessible. I was also a little confused. I've been asking about these drive-throughs and I was a little confused about where exactly the zone was allowed, like how far from the freeway. And I had a hard time getting that answer. And it just goes back to us needing 5 voting districts, and I need a specific council member for my area that I know I can speak to and that is listening to me. So I appreciate your time and I hope you take my thoughts into consideration.
Thank you. Gloria, would you elevate the next speaker?
Patrick Wood, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm one of the owners of Palms to Pines. We purchased the shopping center in 2019 with the intent of a redevelopment of the shopping center. We have gone through and been a part of getting together and figuring out what the best and highest operation of the shopping center is, and then COVID hit. So a lot of our colleagues and other people in our business have been trying to figure out the best way to drive traffic for all the retailers in our different centers. We are happy to be in Palm Desert. I want to say that you guys have been great to work with thus far, and we look forward to working with you guys on this issue moving forward. The issue of drive-throughs in the last 12 months have become paramount to keep retail and people coming into these shopping centers as a mode of driving traffic for the tenants that do not require or do not have drive-throughs. In this particular situation, we have a a grocery store in Smart and Final that inherited this box from Safeway and is about 25% oversized than what it would typically do in another location. We intend on this redevelopment to make this a friendly for bicyclists, dogs. We want to create common area for pedestrians that will be shopping in our centers or passing by our centers. We will include new charging stations. We'll be downsizing this building from 12,000 to 3,000 feet, or roughly 3,000 feet. And our long-term intentions are to revamp and redo this shopping center to attract different tenants. These different drive-throughs are driving so much traffic into these centers that it only helps everybody else that's around them. They're often the catalyst, as you know, or at least in the last 12 months, they've been a big catalyst to drive traffic. This will trigger new tenants that Palms to Pines currently doesn't have access to. As I said, our long-term goal is to keep a grocer in the shopping center, but potentially to upgrade that grocer or re-tenant it when the lease permits us to. A new tenant like a Raising Cane's or a Chick-fil-A or an In-N-Out or somebody in that category are doing huge volumes all across Southern California, and we think they're all a good fit for something like this.
Thank you. Time is up.
You let another one here too.
I have Matt Bush in my office too. He could not get on. Is he permitted 3 minutes?
Mayor?
Is Mr. Bush with you?
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is permitted 3 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Kelly, Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, and council members. I apologize. I could not get my system unmuted, so I jumped into Patrick's office here. I'll just follow up a little bit on what Patrick has spoken about. And one of so there's a financial impact to the neighborhood with the creation of jobs. So right now we've got a mostly vacant 12,000 square foot building that we have the opportunity to replace with a roughly 3,000 to 4,000 square foot drive-through building that will employ 70 to 80 regular employees and with a starting salary of $14 an hour and 3 management positions with executive type salaries that are competitive across many different fields of work. As Patrick mentioned, we plan on creating a pedestrian and bicycle friendly access throughout the site that will be compatible with the drive-through use, and with all the drive-through users that we've been speaking with also have a strong use of outdoor dining areas in their restaurants currently that they've been able to use through COVID. There are some environmental issues that were brought up earlier, and I'd like to speak to that and something we've been able to do in Santa Barbara County successfully. We use solar panels on the roof of the building, the awnings, and the drive-through trellis to offset the carbon output by cars in the drive-through stack. We can measure an average output by the length of the stack and the drive time in the stack and what the typical cars in the neighborhood are, and apply an appropriate countermeasure worth of solar panels. And we can also provide planting and organic materials around the site that absorb carbon and other gases produced by cars. And finally, what was mentioned earlier about cars, lately there's a lot more electric cars on the road, hybrid vehicles, and most new vehicles that are gas powered now shut down when they idle for more than a couple seconds, which greatly reduces any output of carbon and other gases from the vehicles. And as Patrick mentioned, and I'd like to reiterate, this will revitalize a shopping center that needs revitalization. This will drive with the employees and their salaries at the center, and the new shoppers coming from Palm Desert to this center and other cities to this center. There will be a lot more dollars spent in Palm Desert.
Thank you.
And we look for, thank you.
Ms. Sanchez, do you have any other members of the public wishing to speak?
We have a voicemail. I
Can
shall
you-
play it.
Very good.
Hello, hey Rodriguez. Got the Zoom meeting, so thought I'd leave a message on the chance that it would be heard regarding agenda item 13, drive-throughs. I want to call representing many restaurants in our area because we formed a Palm Desert Restaurant Association under the Palm Desert Chamber encouragement, and brought together during COVID. One of the issues that is of concern is we'd like the city to maintain the current template for drive-throughs. We've always aimed high in Palm Desert. We see no reason to change that zoning now. It has been changed over the years to be more expansive. However, if we want to maintain our status as a special destination, a special place to live, it's important to keep in mind that our ease of travel, our open spaces, our beautiful views, we're not like everybody else, nor should we try to be like everybody else. We have had corporate brands insist they couldn't do business here and then adopt and adapt to our requirements, and they've been successful for decades. We've also had really great community partners that have lived within the rules at Del Taco, at McDonald's, at Carl's Jr., just to name a few, John's Burgers. They have worked within these guidelines successfully. It would be a betrayal to them to change these for new operations. Finally, with the advent of curbside dining and delivery services, there really is no need to cover anymore. You can pick up items in almost every restaurant right now and have them brought right to you. So convenience is more accessible than ever for those who wish to remain in their car and pick up food. If we want to remain distinctive, we ought to be looking the other way instead of making allowances for new operations. We ought to throw out a wide net throughout the region and look at distinctive operators that we would like to see come to Palm Desert and show them the merits of bringing their operations here and working within our guidelines. I think distinctive dining will continue to be a great benefit to our community and our visitors. And certainly we welcome corporate dining that would, again, respect decades of effort to provide us with this beautiful community we have. In an instant world, one of our biggest advantages is our distinctiveness, our open spaces, and our ability to be something special. I thank you for your time.
Very good. And Ms. Sanchez, I see a further hand has raised.
Yes. Scott Landgraf, you have 3 minutes.
Hi, good evening, Madam Mayor, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, City Council. My name is Scott Landgraf. I make a living representing national tenants, retailers. I've done several deals in Palm Desert. I'm a Palm Desert resident. I live in Montecito Estates, just north of Cook and Country Club, along with my wife. I've done several retail deals in Palm Desert, namely Orange Theory, Sleep Number Beds, Dick's Sporting Goods, Blaze Pizza, And I now represent numerous drive-through concepts, and I'd like to advocate for them on 111. Not to mention that I've spoken with several of my neighbors and friends here about what I do for a living, and that my one drive-through client, Raising Cane's, has immense interest in becoming a tenant and resident here in Palm Desert as well. I'd like to just address a few things. First and foremost, the drive-throughs these days are evolving significantly. Raising Cane's in numerous occasions has fenced their drive-through such that the city cannot, 111 will not be able to see it. They'll turn their buildings at times such that the drive-through would be on the inside of the building away from the street. They also are evolving technologically with new contactless delivery mechanisms, ordering from the app such that you can pull up and have delivery right to your car, just like everybody else, or even new technology that allows for, similar to Walmart, where you can walk up with your phone with a QR code on your phone and a locker opens up and you can grab your food from them. So all of those things are now becoming regularly used. I would say one more thing, just specifically about Raising Cane's, actually two more. One, they have in 2018, they had the fastest time from order to pickup in the country of every drive-through chain there is. And I think most specifically is they donate 4% of all of their revenues to local charities for each unit. And they'll fully customize their Palm Desert unit with things like the local high schools football uniforms, the local high schools football helmets. They will allow hosting of cheerleading teams, car washes. They're very big sponsors in dog rescues, animal rescues. As you may know, Raising Cane's mascot is Cane. He's the third golden retriever that the founder of Raising Cane's has had. And that's hence the name Raising Cane's. But they're big in animal rescues, and they really spend a lot of time in the local communities trying to help. So I would just advocate that I think it's time to eliminate unsightful 12,000 square foot buildings with tenants that really don't benefit their neighbors, and put shiny brand new 3,000 square foot drive-through restaurants that don't look like drive-throughs out on 111. I think it's time. Thank you for the time.
Thank you. Ms. Sanchez, do we have any other comments?
No.
All right. Let me suggest we take a 10-minute comfort break before our discussion. So we'll be back in 10.
Mayor, may I make a correction of something I stated earlier in the meantime that we wait for the others to return?
Why don't you wait?
Will do.
Councilmember Jonathan, are you with us? All right, we will be back on the record. And Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you so much, Mayor. In our during our comfort break, I did receive an email that I did misspeak, so my apologies. The KESQ article that I'd referenced about the changing age restrictions needed to be revised, and the supervisor's office reached out and issued that the change will be that it will reduce to the different tiers, or it will be a matter of those with pre-existing health conditions. So there are still different considerations, but all we know is that hope is on the horizon. We're all going to get that Johnson & Johnson into everybody's arms sooner or later is my hope. Thank you.
Thank you for that clarification. So we are ready for council discussion on the request for direction. Councilmember Jonathan.
I guess I'll kick off the discussion. And, this is obviously a sensitive issue, and one that frankly I have very mixed feelings about. I'm reminded by the question that Councilmember Quintanilla posed. I'm reminded that the city's posture with regard to drive-throughs has evolved over the years. I believe that initially no drive-throughs were allowed, period. And then we adopted a freeway overlay zone, which permitted them along the I-10 corridor. And then we modified that ordinance and allowed it on north and south arteries that had interchange connections, Monterey, Portola, and Washington. So I tend to think that further consideration is not inappropriate. I'm personally not ready to take the next step of, well, we need to amend the ordinance, we need to allow drive-throughs on 111, but staff is giving us the alternative to study the issue further and to come back to us with what a modified ordinance would look like. I can see, potential benefits. I can see where the right kind of drive-through, Raising Cane's is immensely popular. In Los Angeles, they are the place to go. So we're not here to talk about them, but I use them as an example. I could point out In-N-Out Burger, whatever that is. If it's a drive-through that creates a lot of traffic, it can reinvigorate a struggling retail center, frankly, such as Palms to Pines. So I can see that as a potential benefit. I do think it adds employment, entry-level jobs, which are needed, as well as some executive level jobs. So I think that's a plus. It's an opportunity to reduce some structural footprints. Maybe not in each case will the drive-through be a replacement, but when it is, we create additional view corridors. And so I see some potential benefits beyond, the usual arguments in favor of convenience and working parents that need to, hit the drive-through on their way home and so forth. Beyond that, I see certain appealing possibilities. I do want to say that if we're going to consider modifying the ordinance to allow drive-throughs, that in my mind, there's a few requirements. I mean, number one, that staff in presenting anything to us should carefully consider what portions of Highway 111 and adjacent properties would qualify for this. That's an intricate subject, and so I think they'll have to give that some very careful thought. In my mind, and I heard staff say that it is possible to screen the drive-throughs, or at least the stacking. And I think that's really important. The last thing I would want to see on Highway 111 in the city of Palm Desert is cars stacked up. That's not what we want. And if it's possible to make that a condition in our ordinance, then I would consider that. It may require that we either allow them only in larger centers or on the south side, because there is a slope, a grade difference between the north and the south. So anyway, I don't want to get into the weeds, but I think making sure that the unsightly aspects of drive-throughs, particularly the stacking, are not visible to traffic going by would be important. And then, speaking of stacking, I wouldn't want to see adequate lanes for stacking. I'd want to see significantly excessive requirements to accommodate stacking, because when you look at a place like Raising Cane's, it is not unusual in Los Angeles, in Orange County, where I've seen them have literally 15 or more cars stacked up. So I wouldn't look at national trends. I'd look at the really popular drive-throughs and see what do they need, and then add some to that. And then, of course, make sure the traffic can circulate properly coming into the drive-through and getting out. If we can make them pedestrian friendly, particularly in the downtown city core where we want people to walk, where we want them to bike ride, pedestrian friendly, bicycle friendly, and maybe some little outdoor eating areas like windows in Los Angeles, for example. So I see possibilities that would mitigate some of the adverse issues that we're all concerned about, and I see some upside. So for that reason, I think it's worthy of moving the ball forward a little bit. So just to allow us a look to see what an amended ordinance would look like, without at this point committing whether we would make a change or not. Thank you.
Councilmember Nastante.
Okay, Councilmember Jonathan, thank you for your comments. And I would just like to focus on another area about drive-throughs. I also believe in the past, one of the reasons we didn't want drive-throughs was a concern for the environment and air quality. And I have not seen significant evidence that drive-throughs are, polluting, harming our air quality. And if this is one of the main reasons to vote against drive-throughs, then in my opinion, I would hope we direct staff to approve drive-throughs and focus their efforts, like you were just saying, Councilmember Jonathan, on design elements, not seeing the cars stacked up from the street and that sort of thing. Studies I have seen, though, if air quality is a top priority, leaf blower emissions, studies have shown a 30-minute leaf blower doing yard work is equal to driving a pickup truck about 3,800 miles in terms of emission, which perhaps this is another topic for a different city council meeting, but I just wanted to underscore that. And, I do think Highway 111 is a good place to have some drive-throughs. For example, it was brought up about the Smart and Final location over there. And we already have the Westfield Mall, we have Desert Crossing Center, the Whole Food Center. Those are huge parking lots where we see cars. So I wouldn't, I hope this council will direct staff to move forward with this idea, and again, to focus their efforts on the design elements of drive-throughs. And that's it.
Others? Mayor Pro Tem Arnick.
Thank you, Mayor. I assume the council read the letters we received from the community. And there were quite a few who said, you know what? We don't want drive-throughs, because they like the unique quality of Palm Desert. They like that Palm Desert isn't cookie cutter, isn't like what we see in other communities. And I have seen, because I did a lot of work on this, substantial evidence that the NOx and the VOC compounds contribute mightily to respiratory disorders, and especially in areas where the temperature is hotter, and it creates the ozone that is such a problem. We know in our valley, we have significant respiratory issues with our youth, with our elderly, and I don't know why we'd want to contribute any more to that. But what we heard from the restaurateur who chose to call in, and I have sat through a couple of the restaurant association that Councilmember Jonathan suggested that come together. They like the unique qualities. They don't want the cookie cutter. They did not support coming in with drive-throughs and with more of the same. What they had said is, we want to encourage other great restaurateurs. We see a great restaurant in Coachella, bring it to Palm Desert, get one more of them. That's something unique and special and diverse. The COVID argument, to me, it doesn't stand. Every one of our restaurants has really gone out of their way to accommodate needs. They've all created curbside service. There's delivery services. They've done all their best. What we do see, and making a policy, changing a policy based on COVID is not good policy. It's not good governance. And Palm Desert is special because we haven't done what we've seen happen, like Councilmember Jonathan had mentioned, Los Angeles and Orange County. We're not that. People are leaving that to come here because it is unique and it is special. On summer days, heat and sunlight react with hydrocarbons and nitrogen oxides emitted by automobiles and other sources when mixed to form a ground layer level of ozone, also known as smog. So this goes on and on about the harmful air quality with heat and with idling cars. Do we want to see the idling cars? I'd rather see them than suck in the fumes they're emitting. So I see it's a big problem. There's other issues as well. We've all seen, every one of us has seen huge increase in trash. Go talk to people dealing with landfills, and the trash is from COVID because everything's to go right now. When we have the opportunity not to have to do the to go, why do we want to continue creating more and more trash, more plastics, more things we can't get rid of? Why do we want to think of Palm Desert as a drive-through city? Why do we think that people driving through, it's going to put people in our stores? They're driving through. That's why, because they don't want to stop. Palm Desert, I view it as a place we want to stop. We want to dine with our friends and family. We want to create that atmosphere. We don't want to drive through. We want to enjoy our city, and we want to do it with our friends and with our families in a wholesome environment. So those are some of the things. And anytime we decide to grant or deny any significant edits or changes, we better give careful consideration to a list of criteria. And they should include civic design, property values, our strategic plan that we worked long and hard on that did not include drive-throughs. It created a whole different sense of community than drive-throughs. And so did our general plan update. We need to consider that. Character, quality of life, diversity, our natural and scenic qualities and assets, and public health and safety. So you can say we could have a shiny new building if we put a drive-through in there. Well, there's other ways to get and evolve than putting drive-throughs in. And this isn't about, well, the family's got to go through. It's not about rushing a family through. Let's get together, let's sit down and dine. Palm Desert's not a drive-through city. Let's not drive through. Let's sit down and enjoy each other. We worked long and hard on San Pablo to create that feeling. Let's continue it. Thank you.
Councilmember Quintanilla.
I'm confused as to how character and equity are negatively impacted by drive-throughs. And I've read a lot of the same comments that we're hearing as we hear what happened in Rancho Mirage and the uproar over In-N-Out. But I also hear the issue of accessibility, and in hearing and mentioning that we're not cookie cutter, we want to be something cute. Well, cute is not always ADA accessible. And
No
I
one
think
said
that,
cute. No one said cute. No one used that word ever.
and if it's still my turn, is there, since you've interrupted, is there anything else you'd like to continue in interjecting, or is that it?
I just would ask that you not misquote.
The charm or appeal that someone finds in something that is innovative, it doesn't mean it's the right fit for everyone. And in saying that Palm Desert is not suited for some of these organizations that have the ability to employ people with living wages and excellent starting wages, I think it should be considered. I think that as we mentioned things like air quality, as an asthmatic, I fully agree. And we will absolutely keep having issues about air quality. I think that this is an excellent opportunity to say right now, everything with COVID, it becomes disposable, and we're concerned for the environmental impact. So let's be sure that we're going to ensure that Palm Desert can go next level and be how we set ourselves up to have some innovative recycling program for all of the waste. If we're so concerned about the environment, let's be sure to enact the ordinance that the Sierra Club has been asking for to ban styrofoam in Palm Desert. So we're so concerned about the environment, there's lots of ways to do it. In this case, staff has mentioned, and the potential, the applicants or whoever would be applying for a permit or business owners, we're looking at the fact that when drive-throughs were first established and the discussions of ordinance and emissions were in place, we're not dealing with the same vehicles. We're dealing with the fact that we have, as we're discussing Raising Cane's as an example, they have partnerships with organizations like Tesla. We could use this as the opportunity to say, if Palm Desert is to break with its current norm, we had better make one heck of an example. Blow us away with how amazing you're going to make this, so that if anyone else asks us to reconsider, they know where the bar already stands and we're going to set it high. I think that we need to use that as the opportunity to attract a lot more sustainability. We heard that there will be solar on the rooftops, but I think that we need to do more for and ask for charging stations. We know that we want to be the future of Cal State Palm Desert. We want to show that we have the infrastructure in place before all of the green cars are rolling through. I don't think that we have nearly enough, and we can easily increase the accessibility. Date nights and family movie nights have changed forever, because now the big box offices are releasing simultaneously into your television through HBO, or you can go do it at home. I know families with multiple kids that would much rather pick up a hot meal, go home and watch the movie there, where they can get up and not miss and rewind and deal with bathroom breaks and itty bitties. So I think we're looking to change the culture significantly, and I think it's an opportunity. We've discussed how our current restaurant owners have made modifications for curbside pickup. I don't necessarily know that curbside pickup will continue, let's say in 2022. I don't know how many of them will continue to feel that value. Yes, there are delivery services like Postmates and Uber Eats, Grubhub, etc. But sometimes the delivery fees on those are actually more expensive than what you want to eat. And I don't know when the last time any of you were impacted by a mobility issue, but when I was pending surgery, it was extremely difficult to get out of my bed, outside of my home, down the stairs, into the car. And if we're talking about offsetting emissions, I assure you that I wasted a lot more of my fuel and produced a lot more of a carbon footprint driving further out of my way to find a drive-through so that I did not have to exit my vehicle because it was excruciating pain. And I think that this is where it becomes an equity issue. It's not just a matter of drive-throughs being classy or not classy, or part of what Palm Desert is or isn't, because drive-throughs exist. If it was so terrible for Palm Desert, we wouldn't have them at all. And I am offended at the idea that drive-throughs would somehow diminish the quality of Palm Desert instead of attracting variety. And there's the opportunity to insist on project labor agreements. We can say, look, we're going to break with the norm. It's an opportunity to start a trend in a different direction. Let's be sure that we have unions coming in and helping to ensure these projects are built cost effective, on time. So there's a great opportunity to pivot in a new direction. So I think that it's the time to explore.
Thank you. May I take a turn? And then we'll pick up. Let me put some of what I've just heard in context. I encourage everyone to bring to mind the goals that are expressed for our city core in the general plan. The general plan has a vision that the city core will have these two attributes. It will be a place people want to come to and remain at, because there'll be walkable experiences that are enjoyable and fulfilling for them. The dream includes making our city core more bicycle friendly, more bicycle accessible. We've invested a huge amount in modifying the infrastructure of San Pablo so it both accommodates and invites the unfolding of that vision. And we're starting to see that happen. When you visit the farmers market, you encounter people from the neighborhood that have been able to walk and get healthy vegetables without any use of combustion engines. You see people interacting, and because they're there and spending some time, they see some of our great unique businesses on San Pablo. We've only started to see what's possible, but what we've seen is so exciting. I would hate to see Highway 111, which is so proximate to San Pablo and so key to our city core, given over to whatever's expedient, the first developer that knocks at the door. And I fear that that's what would happen if we change this particular ordinance. We would be inviting developers to recreate the latest big thing that exists in Orange County or the latest big thing that exists in Los Angeles. But our tourism, our hospitality is contingent upon providing unique and special experiences. No one's going to post on social media that they came to Palm Desert and they just love the drive-through that they have back home in Orange County. We've just heard from one of the leaders of our currently unique and attractive restaurants. And I think it's key at this juncture to remind ourselves just how much those restaurants who are currently vital to our economy, currently vital to keeping our people employed, have suffered, and how critical this time is to act in a way that's responsive to them and supportive of them. It would strike me as a particularly inopportune time to invite a change to the landscape, which could make it harder for them to attract business or to sustain themselves. There's a couple of arguments I've heard that just strike me as unconvincing. Of course, I would like Palms to Pines to succeed. I'd like all of our property to succeed, but I can't for the life of me fathom how people driving through could help the shopping center. To help the shopping center, You need people to stop, not to drive through. So something at that location that caused people to stop and to sit down, not drive through, would seem to be much more opportune. We'll get to your comment. I do think that curbside pickup is here to stay. It's a product of consumer demand. It's producing business. So I think that's the answer to accessibility, and it's the answer to safe commerce, whether we're facing this pandemic or something else. So I haven't heard anything about current conditions that would make changing our drive-through ordinance the best way to advance our dream toward a city core, which is more pedestrian friendly, more bicycle friendly, and fuller of more special, unique experiences. Let me go back to Councilmember Jonathan first, and then Councilmember Quintanilla.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. First of all, thank you. As I said, I have mixed feelings. So everything that's been said really resonates with me. And I appreciate everyone's thoughtful input on this, as I said, sensitive issue. I do have, after listening to everyone, just a few observations and then a suggestion for maybe how to move forward. When it was STRs, we heard people say, talk in terms of, are we going to allow or not allow STRs? And we knew that wasn't the case. It was a matter of quantity and placement. And this is similar. This is not a question. I know people want to paint things in hard lines in black and white, but this is not a question about whether we're going to allow drive-throughs in Palm Desert. We already have drive-throughs in Palm Desert. We have them, of course, along the freeway, some arterials, as I mentioned earlier, and we have banks. We have drugstores. There's a drugstore on Monterey and 111 I go to, and it has a drive-through, and there are others. So this is not a question about what we already have drive-throughs in Palm Desert. This is a more specific, targeted question. The other thing that I have to say strikes me, I too, like Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, care very deeply about the environment, and I hope we take that discussion further. As I've mentioned before, when Palm Springs decided to opt into desert community energy, they took 15,000 cars off the street, ladies and gentlemen. If we really care about the environment and the noxious fumes and everything else that Mayor Pro Tem brought up, we need to look at that, because that's what'll make a difference, not this other stuff, not anywhere in comparison to carbon-free energy. Look, the strategic plan, like others on this council, I was part of Envision Palm Desert. I know what we envisioned, and I know what I have in mind for the city core, and I care very deeply and passionately about moving that ball forward. Unlike some of the comments, though, I see the possibility that the right drive-through can absolutely enhance the vision and bring us closer to that goal, because it does bring people to the downtown city core. And what we talked about in Envision Palm Desert and the strategic plan, and as was said tonight, we want to be a go-to place. We don't want a ghost town. We want activity. We want to see people. We want to see people walking on bicycles, and yes, even in cars, coming to downtown, to the city core. And no, people, even though the name is drive-through, people don't do a drive-by, okay? What people do, if the center is reinvigorated, for example, they go to the center because they can hit the drive-through on their way out, on their way home. So I think that the right types of drive-throughs can enhance our vision for the city core. I do think that restrictions have to be put in place, and our staff is very talented, very creative, and now very experienced. With dispensaries, we had the same concerns. We didn't want Palm Desert to turn into a cannabis capital of the Coachella Valley. That's alliteration. That's really good. I just thought of that. And so what did we do? We limited the numbers, and not only the numbers, but the locations, and not only the locations, but how far apart they had to be from each other. So I think with that understanding, we can ensure that Palm Desert does not turn into, a drive-through capital of the Coachella Valley. So I just feel like there's enough here. We as a city have been so good at evolving. And let's face it, folks, we have a more diverse population in Palm Desert. Drive-throughs serve a significant portion of our population. They serve all our population. And we're evolving. And I think what we do needs to evolve with the evolving makeup of our city and its residents. So here's a suggestion. I'll just throw it out there. Staff gave us a couple of choices, and the second one says initiate a zoning ordinance amendment. That's a little too strong for me because I'm not there yet. But I want to see what it would look like. So I wonder if the motion can be not to initiate a zoning ordinance amendment, but to request that staff present, one or two or three or what, just what a zoning ordinance amendment would look like, just for our consideration, whether we want to even put something on the agenda for an actual amendment. So I know there's a subtle distinction there, but it's important in my mind, and perhaps that can be the way we move forward. Not necessarily initiate an amendment, but instead request staff to present to us, after thoughtful consideration, analysis, and everything they've heard here, what an amendment to the zoning ordinance might look like. Thanks.
Councilmember Quintanilla had her hand up first, and then I'll go to you, Councilmember Nestante. Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I beg to differ with you in terms of people going out of their way to visit a selective restaurant with a drive-through. Now, again, for just the example that's presented here, my understanding is that Cane's has a twin kitchen. So they have the reason they're so fast and have been so praised is because they don't just have the food that's made in the same place and some goes to the drive-through and some goes out to the dining room. It's two separate kitchens. So they still have their full service sit-down restaurant where people go and drive from here to Beaumont, because I know plenty of teenagers that go out of their way to drive that far. You want to talk about CO2? We've got a carbon footprint from people that have a devout following for Cane's already in the desert. Instead of looking at, wow, Coachella has a great restaurant, as Mayor Pro Tem suggested, that we find something that's there and bring it here. It could be the other way around, that Cane's could decide, hey, Palm Desert is great, the Coachella Valley has been so great for us, we can expand elsewhere and have that trickle through, because we know we are not cities that exist independently. And I think that it's the opportunity to look at, maybe, again, if we make this ask, if we tell developers we want to go really, really green, go way out there and impress us if we want us to consider making a change, we could ask for a lot more charging stations for electric vehicles and have this be a service that people can then walk across to Westfield. So that's a walkable path right there. That is still promoting businesses. It's supporting the other in the area. I really like the opportunity to even discuss renovating that whole little shopping center. In driving behind the shopping center, you could very easily position the drive-through on that side of it where you wouldn't see it at all from 111, and any possible backup traffic, if they have a spectacular, amazing, record-breaking opening that makes headlines even in company history, it would all just go back to the back of El Paseo and really not affect anybody. So I echo Councilmember Jonathan's sentiments that it's about evolving, it's about strategic evolution. And I think that, the strategic plan is a living document, and what we know today may change from what we know tomorrow, but I think it's time to explore moving forward with the change.
Councilmember Nestante.
Yes, I would just like to say that Councilwoman Quintanilla, I agree with what you were saying, and I really do want to encourage staff to move forward looking at having some drive-through restaurants. We are a diverse city, and I don't know where the evidence is that most people do not want drive-throughs in Palm Desert. I mean, if we had it on the ballot, it'd be interesting to see how much support there actually is or not for drive-throughs. But the only evidence any of us can have is anecdotal at this point of which residents in Palm Desert want drive-throughs and those that don't. But we just need to look at the evidence that's out there that so many people do want the option of having some more drive-throughs. And like our family, we love going to the family-owned restaurants, but we can't do that all the time. Like tonight, I'm here at the city council meeting. I'm not making dinner. My kids are going to their favorite fast food drive-through somewhere. And so it's not always an option for families, or you don't even have to be a family, but it's not always an option to go and sit down and have dinner. I think Palm Desert needs to have some more options. Like we've been saying, we already have the drive-throughs on 111, the banks, the pharmacies, and if done properly, I believe we could add a few more drive-throughs to our city of Palm Desert. And I hope we can move forward with it and not postpone this to another discussion that I don't see would be fruitful to just tell staff, well, we have to think about it more, come back to us again. They're asking for direction right now, and I hope we can give them direction this evening.
All right, since I can count, Councilmember Jonathan, why don't you take a stab at making your motion?
Okay, let me try this. Yes, I would move to have staff study the issue, hear the concerns that were raised tonight, and bring to us a sample of what a zoning ordinance amendment would look like that would include drive-through restaurants along portions of Highway 111 and adjacent properties for our consideration.
Is there a second?
Second motion.
Any further discussion? Madam Clerk, please take the vote.
Mayor Pro Tem Harnick,
No.
Councilman Jonathan,
Aye.
Councilmember Nastandi,
Yes.
Councilmember Quintanilla,
Aye.
Mayor Kelly.
No.
Motion carries on a 3-2 vote with Mayor Pro Tem Harnick and Mayor Kelly voting no.
Mayor, I just want to add, I intentionally did not put a specific date, but obviously because we've got a change in the city managers, and I know we need the new one to kind of get settled in. But as Councilmember Nastandi indicated, that this is a current and pressing issue. So hopefully we can hear back from Mr. Seha, who probably already has an amended ordinance in his back pocket sooner rather than later.
Indeed. We have no information items, which brings us to the single public hearing before us. Receive public comment regarding the development of the program year 2021 action plan, including the community development block grant program. Mr. Gary.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Council members. Again, Chris Gary at the City Manager's Office. The item presented before you this evening is a public hearing to kick off the city's annual appropriation process for the Community Development Block Grant Program, also known as the CDBG program. And to summarize, this federal program provides eligible government agencies funding to achieve various national objectives with the primary focus on serving low and moderate income individuals as well as families. City staff previously released a grant application for nonprofit agencies to apply for funding, and that respective period closes March 5th. Those applications, along with funding recommendations, will be submitted to the city's outside agency funding committee for review and then subsequently for city council's consideration. In regard to funding, I believe in the staff report, I said that there was an approximate or an estimate of $410,000 as our annual allocation for this coming year. And it was actually today that HUD released the allocations, and we're going to receive $418,000, which is again an $8,000 increase from our previous program year. And the submission of our annual action plan, including the funding recommendations, are due May 15th. And to conclude, the recommendation this evening is to open and close a public hearing in order to receive public comments regarding the CDBG program. And I am available for any questions as well.
Any questions? If not, then I will open the public hearing. Please raise your hand if you're among the attendees and have shown up to speak to this item. Ms. Sanchez, do you have any request to speak?
No.
Then I will close the public hearing. And I believe no further action is required at this time.
That is correct.
Very good. Which brings us to Mayor and Council Member reports and requests for action. I want to assure members of the public that all the City Council members have extensive meetings outside the context of these council meetings. We just use this time to touch upon high points that we feel are of particular public interest. And Mayor Pro Tem Harnick, it's your turn to go first.
Well, thank you. Are we combining comments with requests to make it easy? I did want to mention, I saw in the Current, the Spring Westways magazine, a nice little write-up on the living desert. So a little moment of Palm Desert pride there. And I also wanted to mention that today, in the Emerging Technologies Committee meeting for Southern California Association of Governments, we explored asset inventory management systems. And I think it's something that we need to look at just to explore the need and the relevance so that we better use all of our assets and we're more effective. And this is everything from pole top uses. You know, we recently saw something with I think it was 5G on one of our pole tops, to have all of that in order, which most cities don't. And in fact, they use San Diego as an example because they are working with San Diego to do their asset inventory. And that's everything from vaults, manholes, drain structures, poles, whether they're light or traffic signs, but it's so that we know what we own, so that we can deal with carriers better and we can make better use of these smart cities opportunities we'll see as we go forward. So I'd be happy to talk to whomever at the staff would be the person to kind of explore this a little, if that is what the city council and the city manager would like. And I think that's what I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Nestante.
Go unmute. I just wanted to highlight the housing market here briefly. I attended a webinar on the state of housing for Coachella Valley, and overall in the whole valley, we have the lowest inventory of homes in years. We only have about a month and a half worth for every home to be sold. For example, a year ago, at any given time, there'd be 3,000 homes for sale. Now there's just a little over 1,000 homes for sale. And within a month and a half, if every home that was listed today, it would be sold. And new construction cannot even keep up. And in fact, I'm making an appointment to go in Palm Desert. We have the Sage development, the builder is Ponderosa Homes. I talked with the head of the sales team there. They can't build the homes quick enough. They'd sold out of the first 3 phases. And so now they're looking at late fall before they can take any new home reservations because they're just flying off the shelf. And I guess my question is more for staff. Can we get an update on where we are on future home development in that North Spear at some point? So that was a long way of asking to get an update at some point on our housing market and new construction.
Thank you. Councilmember Quintanilla.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a report that I was not able to find my very extensive notes the last time. So I've typed up, so if anybody would love to get the full report, I would be more than happy to provide it. In fact, I have also posted some of the details on social media. And they're just basically what the biggest highlight from the Public Safety Commission for me from CVAC was a legislative update and looking at all of these changes that impact individuals, potentially making very substantial changes. So for example, the definition of elderly has been changed for consideration for parole. And it also reduces the number of time that is required before you can request parole. There is exceptions, or now you can easily break a lease if there has been any kind of domestic violence or stalking or a crime has been committed. So where before it would be very dangerous to keep living somewhere you felt unsafe because you could not afford to break a lease, now these are things that the state is allowing for people to do. There's new registration for sex offenders. So there's a lot of little things that impact us. But I think the most substantial one for the public to know is that in California, the carotid chokehold is banned. And that was an interesting discussion about why the need to ban it. And so just encouraging everyone to look at the legislative updates and look at how your rights are impacted, look at how your rights to serve on a jury have been impacted, looking at how previous convictions can be overturned, and that way we can be sure that everyone's living their best life possible. I think the other thing I wanted to bring up is that I have requested or have called a meeting. I want to reach out to our partners in education and see what we as a council can do to support Desert Sands Unified and opening. We've got all of the schools in the city that we want to be sure of whatever support they need, whether it's resources or parent communication. We are all partners, and we've been very excited to know that we can get our kiddos back in school. And it just takes knowing the right metrics. And so we've received emails about why we're not all back open. It all comes down to ensuring the right metrics are in place. So we're beating the drum here. It's the same thing. Things are coming, change is coming. We will get there, but it just takes a little bit of patience.
Thank you, Councilmember Jonathan.
Thank you, Mayor. Like you said at the beginning, I attended a number of meetings. There's nothing really significant that I need to report to council or the public. I do have a request for action for staff. I think we all got correspondence from a resident expressing her concerns about the planned exhibit at the Living Desert. And so that caught my attention, and I did some research, and I'm concerned now as well. The exhibit involves pyrotechnics. Chris Souza of Pyro Spectaculars, a smoke over 1,200 acres in the Living Desert, adjacent to animals and near the bighorn sheep. I just wonder, you know, if something happens, the optics would be horrible for the city of Palm Desert, and I understand there may be some disagreement, but let me just finish. And so, you know, worse than the optics would be if there was any adverse impact on the animals, either at the Living Desert or the bighorn sheep. Do you want me to stop? Okay,
No,
so
I want you to finish.
Okay, thank you. I'm almost there. So I'm not against it. I just wonder if staff can reach out to the Living Desert, to the Bighorn Institute, and the California Department of Fish and Wildlife, and make sure that we're not doing something that's wrong.
And could I make this suggestion, Councilmember Jonathan, to start with the Living Desert, because it's hard to imagine any entity that would be more concerned about the welfare of animals, just to find out what can be learned from them. I think they would appreciate that from us before making other calls. Would that be acceptable to you?
I think.
Can I give you the update? update on that so that we don't need to go through that.
Sure,
From
sorry.
Alan Monroe, due to COVID-19 precautionary measures and because the county has not yet moved us out of the current tier, the Desert X exhibition, Judy Chicago, Living Smoke, will not be held at TLD. We are disappointed that we are unable to host her at this, her art this spring, but proudly remain a cultural partner of Desert X. So that solves the living desert issue.
It does. Thank you, Janet. And I would just finish by saying, if they want to relocate somewhere, look, the last exhibit in 2019, they canceled a similar, not similar, but an exhibit in the Whitewater Preserve that was going to damage bighorn sheep and other environmental concerns. So if they're going to locate an exhibit in Palm Desert, which would be wonderful, I just want to say that we need to think ahead and make sure that we're not creating a problem. But thank you, Jan. I appreciate the update.
Thank you both. I have three things. One of my assignments, I'm privileged to represent the city on the Sunline Transit Board. And I've shared in the past the initiatives that Sunline is taking, really making it truly an international leader in tapping liquid hydrogen as a source of fuel that is more earth-friendly than electricity, because you eliminate the issue of what to do with worn-out batteries. I'm pleased and excited to let you know that Sunline has secured a $5 million competitive grant from the California Energy Commission. That's 1/4 of the available fund for the purpose of creating an additional standalone liquid hydrogen refueling station. This could be hugely important as a resource to encourage more commercial use of hydrogen fuel cell as a source of automation. So securing 1/4 of the available funding in the state is a great achievement and just further brightens the start of this resource in the Coachella Valley for moving forward green goals. So yay, Sunlight. Also have the happy news that a frequent participator in our committees and commissions, Pam Williams, was named the Essential Worker of the Week by NBC Palm Springs for her participation in our local Rotary Club's Angels of Service program, which, consistent with the work of the city, supports 4 different food service providers during the course of the month. So we congratulate her. And then lastly, because this is the last meeting for our interim city manager, I want to lead off some comments of deep appreciation. The public may not all appreciate that Randy Binder is a resident of Palm Desert who, like so many residents here, was living happily ever after when he got the call and was invited to put to work his extensive experience in city government and really regional government in the Coachella Valley to lead us through this key transitional time. Randy said yes and was able to step in without missing a beat. Randy, you've put huge energy into this interim time. You've given us great perspective, fresh eyes, and a voice based on much experience. You've become a valued counselor to the city council and were of immense help to us in the course of our city manager search. We're going to deeply miss you and forever be thankful for the contribution you've made to keep your city moving in the right direction. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other council comments?
I'm just going to echo that. Randy, thank you. You did a great job at a time you were really needed. Thanks for stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, and I again echo everything the mayor said. Additionally, the fresh eyes and the perspective was a real gift to the city at this time, and I know it will be going forward. And your ability to find a creative solution is very impressive. So I thank you so much for coming on and for being such an asset to Palm Desert and into the valley. So thank you so much.
And again, thank you very much, Randy, as well. I appreciate you very, very much and hope to see you around City Hall on occasion. Don't stay a stranger.
Thank you.
Randy, I'd like to say muchísimas gracias. I am so deeply appreciative of our little quick chats that we got to have. And even though we only worked together very briefly, I would have to remind myself that you were interim. I never got the feeling like this is just the guy filling in and warming up the seat, keeping it ready for Todd until we selected him. It was always such dedication and very genuine, emotionally present with everything. Everything was very deliberate, and I just want to echo the sentiments that you contributed in wonderful, meaningful ways, and you will be missed.
Muchas gracias, amiga.
And this is your last crack at city manager comments before you dive into those nothing but cakes. Although next week you have the beginning of a lifelong chance to contact us as one of our constituents.
And your phone numbers. I don't have any announcements to make. I asked staff at the management meeting a couple days ago, and they are all good too. So thank you very much for the opportunity to serve. I appreciate it, and I've learned a lot, and I hope that I've contributed and left this place better than when I came on September 14th. It's been a great challenge, and your staff is a joy to work with, and it's awesome working with the council and seeing you work through the issues. And thank you. And Bob, you're all right too. Thank you. That's it. I'll keep it short. No crying.
On that happy note, we'll adjourn.
If I can toss out a happy belated birthday to Councilwoman Estande. I heard through the grapevine, I believe she recently may have had a birthday, and I heard that Ms. Gloria will be having a birthday soon. So if little bird's misinformed, I do apologize for putting you on the spot, but if you are having a birthday, healthiest wishes to you.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you. Take care.
Hearing no objection, we are adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
6:33 p.m.